Hey, welcome back to Southern Oregon Safari. We've been gone for a while.
Sorry.
We'll be right back and explain why and what to look forward to in the future.
See you soon.
Welcome back to Southern Oregon Safaris, where the buffalo roam. I'm Jerry.
I'm Hayden.
And in this episode, we're going to answer questions because I did promise a Q&A review. And I got Hayden sitting here on the hay bales, relaxing for a moment.
Before I go back to work?
He's a busy man. Yes, very busy man. So we're going to go talk and pull out the questions and talk about a couple of other things.
Yeah, and first thing, we'd like to apologize. We've been down not producing anything for a couple of weeks, so we apologize. You know, life gets in the way, weather and family things and all that. So we're back, and sorry, sometimes that may happen here and there in our lives. It kind of gets complicated, and sometimes we have to take a little break from doing this extra work. But we love doing the work, so we're here for you, and we're going to try to do our best to keep it going.
It gave me a chance to sit back and read a good book. I picked up a novel by this author. She wrote historical facts about my hometown, Coos Bay.
I love it.
And it was a really good novel. I just finished it this morning.
I'm jealous. I wish I had time to read a good book. I haven't had time to read a good book in, I don't know, 30 years.
An audiobook might be good for
Audiobook would
Just
probably be
listen to it
helpful.
on the way.
I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I'm working, that's what I have in the background. It's better than the noises in my head.
Okay. Shall we get to some
All those
questions?
screaming people back there, you got to kind of drown them out sometimes.
Shall we get to some questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. I don't know if I should mention their names, but...
No, let's not mention names.
Okay.
Or we can just maybe a first name.
Okay.
I guess we can just do a first name. If there's
Okay.
one.
Kathy asked, and there's some others that asked about the elephants' beds on sleeping arrangements.
Yeah. Yeah, and so what maybe you don't see in all of our videos is every morning we put about 2 to 3 inches of pine shavings. Or actually it's a finely ground. It's not just a regular shaving. It's actually a really tightly packed shaving. So when the elephants stand up, because they're so heavy and being on concrete is really hard on any animal. So we don't want them standing on concrete. We don't want the cold from the concrete going into the feet. It's bad for their bones, causes arthritis. It's not good for us. That's why we stand on a pad. If somebody's working at a cash register all day long and they're on their feet all day long, we put a rubber pad, and that basically blocks the cold air or the cold temperature from going through the concrete into the bottoms of your feet and up into your bones. Not healthy. When you're big and you weigh 8, 9, between 7,000 and 9,000 pounds, you need a padding. And so their foot is very cushiony, and they got a really good cushion on the bottom of the foot. But we put shavings down every day, 7 days a week, and that stuff is actually really nice. It's almost like a memory foam mattress, really, believe it or not. Just that little bit of gap there really makes a big deal. Plus, the other thing is when we clean the barn every day, we don't throw out the leftover chaff or the leftover hay that they didn't eat. We save it for bedding. And so that's when they want to lay down, and they'll make themselves like a little nest. They'll pull the hay into a pile and they'll lay down on that. So they get that, and a lot of times when we do videos, the barn is not set up for the night totally. Sometimes you guys just don't see that in the camera, but they always have the shavings and the bedding. Outside, they have hilly terrain. There's sand hills. There's actually a little mud hole up there, and so they'll like to get down and lay down on the side of the hill or in the sand. And so that's where they like, especially in the summertime, they lay down a lot out there in the summertime. Take naps up on the little mole hills or whatever you want to call them.
They've got a nice enclosure outside to keep them safe.
It's not just and it's not just a big piece of flat ground. It's got uphill and downhill for exercise and gives them something to do. And they like to play and dig in the dirt and so they make a lot of big piles out there too. And we take the tractors and sometimes we'll go out there and we'll move dirt around to give them some extra piles and stuff to play in. But somebody said, why can't you put sand inside the building? Well, it's a great question, but the problem with sand inside the building is they urinate like a lot. And so when you're talking about each time they urinate could be 2-3 gallons, they'll do that maybe 10 times through the night. So you could have 20 gallons of urine on each side, which would be about 40 gallons total. And if the sand is in there, that sand will absorb the urine and now you've got a really strong ammonia, and you've got a very unsanitary
Problems with infections,
impossible
potential.
to clean and all that. So that's why there's no sand inside the building. It's just
Okay.
it's really hard to keep it sanitary. That
So
way.
it's preventative.
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty much. So I hope that answers the question. What was your name again?
Since that was Kathy.
Kathy. Thank you for the question, Kathy.
So since we were talking about elephant foot, one other viewer asked, what about did you train the elephants to put their feet up there when we did foot care?
Who asked that question? There was a lot.
Daisy.
Daisy asked. So Daisy asked about how they get their feet up on the bars when we're doing foot care. Good question, Daisy, and thank you for asking. It is a trained behavior. Elephants are they love to climb anyway. I mean, even when you don't ask them, they're putting their feet up on the bars and climbing. They're like little gymnasts. They think it's like a bunch of 4-year-old kids playing on a gymnasium. They're always climbing on everything. But basically, we do everything with a positive reward system. So when they do the right thing, they just automatically get a treat for it. So if I tell them to foot up, they just are trained to lift their foot up. And as soon as they do, I give them a treat for it and tell them, good girl. And then I taught them to put their foot up on the bars while I'm doing footwork. And they just usually, somebody comes and pays them or gives them treats or throw a pile of something they really like to keep them occupied while I'm doing feet. Not all the time, but most of the time we do that. Sometimes when I'm doing it for the camera, I don't do all that. But when I do footwork, especially if I'm by myself and I've got a lot of footwork to do, I don't want them getting bored and fussy. So I'll just put a pile of something they really enjoy and let them eat that while I'm working on the feet. But yes, they are trained to put their feet up. It's actually a pretty simple thing to train. We also ask them to offer other things. Like I have to do for the federal government, I have to do what's called a trunk wash to make sure they don't have tuberculosis. And that is something we ask them to offer their trunk, the end of the trunk, which is like me asking you to offer, they're very protective over that trunk. It's everything. It's their hands, they breathe through their nose. So when you ask them to hand you something like their trunk, they have to have a lot of trust in you to do so. So we teach them basically to offer their trunk up. We pour saline solution in the trunk, shake it up, and then have them blow it into a bag. And then we send that off to a laboratory.
Oh.
And the laboratory checks to make sure they don't have tuberculosis.
Oh, that's very wise.
And you have to, by law, they've backed off the law, but for the last 35 years, there's a law or a regulation that you had to submit a clean TB test to every elephant in your possession, especially if you're going to have them anywhere near public or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
They backed off of it a little the last couple of years. I don't know why, but we still try to do the trunk washes, and we still keep the training up. And we ask also to offer an ear, which they have large blood vessels in the back of their ear, and a lot of times we have to check their blood. Check for many things, especially for health. So just like you get a blood test, we do blood tests on them now and then. So we ask them to offer ear. So they flip their ear out and they kind of lean into you, and you can draw blood out of that vein behind the ear. And it really is like no more than you just getting a small prick in your arm. They don't seem to mind it. Their skin is much thicker and they have a lot less sensitivity. And we give them treats while we're doing it, and so they learn to offer an ear. So yes, that's all part of the training, is offering their parts up so we can maintain them and keep them healthy.
We had a neighbor that watches our show.
Ah.
And she's a former next door neighbor of mine where I used to live. Mm-hmm. And she asked she asked the same question I asked you one day when I was actually filming putting elephants to bed, which, by the way, thank you guys. That turned out to be one of our epic videos. It was our last video we filmed before we took a break. But it's really caught a lot of attention. So one of the questions I asked, and one of the questions that our neighbor asked was, what is that secretion in front of the ears of elephants?
Yes, that's a great question. So those are in a bull elephant. Sometimes they'll call them must glands. I call them temporal lobe glands or temporal glands. So they're temples, like we have temples here. Theirs kind of protrude out, and it is part of the. There's a skull that pushes that out, and then they've got like this gland in there, and so there's a small opening on each side of the head, and it's actually all entangled and meshed in with the olfactory system. They got this amazing olfactory system, and for those who don't know what olfactory is, that's the sense of smell and all that. You know, your taste buds are all connected in some way. Our ducts, our bile ducts, our saliva glands, our sinus cavity, our eyes, our ears, everything's kind of interconnected. Well, this temporal lobes, our temporal glands are all interconnected, and they actually secrete like a clear liquid or liquid, almost like an oily substance. And that temporal fluid is, it's a big deal to them because they're so scent driven Because if they're looking for, like, let's say there's a male and he's looking for a female that's an estrus, that she's ready to be impregnated, they travel miles and miles and miles to find each other. Well, this is like an SOS system or a Morse code system. These secretions have a tremendous amount of pheromones and hormones in them. And so when the females are in estrus, the male can follow that smell. Everything she's touched, everywhere she's dribbled the whole way, wherever she's going, he can follow her and find her. And he knows which ones are in estrus and which ones aren't, which ones are ready for breeding by the smell of that hormone that's secreted.
And that leads him to her so he could share his genetics.
Exactly. And then the
and
males
preserve the population.
And the males, when he is, they kind of go into a heat. We call it musting. And it's kind of like a heat cycle for a male. When his testosterone is heavily elevated, he becomes super aggressive, and he stops eating most of the time, and he becomes almost blind to everything around him except finding a female to breed with. And he goes on a tangent. He's a total rampaging jerk during those times, just like a drunken Irishman. He basically is almost kind of intolerable, or he just doesn't tolerate anything at that point. He just is focused on females when he becomes in must. His glands also secrete, and he rubs that everywhere. Now that lets other males know that, hey, I'm in must, stay out of here, it's my territory. It lets them know that other females know that he's available male, okay? And they can identify each other with these smells. And so this is a really complicated liquid that comes out of these elephants. And then they have something in the, I think we've talked about the Jacob's organs, didn't we?
We did, yes.
So this all is tied into the Jacob organ, again, part of the olfactory system. In the roof of the mouth, right up in front of the lip there, right under the trunk, there's 2 holes. And this organ is called the Jacob's organ. And that Jacob's organ, you'll see animals, a lot of animals do it. Cats will do it. I think like ferrets, house cats, a lot of animals will do this. They have these Jacob's organ. And what you'll see is you think that they're smiling or they're growling. They'll kind of, and I'm being ridiculous on camera, but they'll hold their mouth open, they'll kind of pinch their nose, and it looks like they're kind of growling or something. But what they're doing is they're sucking in through those Jacob's organs, whatever the smell is, whether it's urine or fecal matter, whatever it is, they're smelling it, they're holding their nose up in the air, and they're curling their nose up, and they're sucking it in, and the brain is analyzing the smell. Well, all of them have 2 big Jacob's organs up the roof of their mouth. They'll do the same thing. They'll smell something through their trunk, and sometimes they'll put their trunk into their mouth and exhale it, and try to exhale it into those holes, into the Jacob's organ. So when the male, he's looking for a female in estrus, he's finding these dribbles, he can smell it, but he really doesn't identify it completely by the smell until he puts it up to the Jacob's organ. Puts it up to the Jacob's organ, that Jacob's organ sends a computer message automatically to the brain, says, you're on the right track, this girl's ready for you, go find her. And so I know this is the long end of this story.
It's fascinating.
But it is very fascinating. It's a very complicated system. And elephants are super complicated anyway. Their social structure is very complicated. But this whole hormonal thing and pheromone thing is pretty interesting. I mean, so many animals use this. I mean, I know that they use even pig pheromones or something in cologne because that can attract the opposite sex. But it's just a really complicated chemical composition. And so people go, oh, I heard this because they're stressed. I don't know how you could guess that because those temporal lobes are almost always dripping somewhat. When it's cold, it drips. When it's hot, it drips. When they're excited, it drips. In fact, an excited elephant sometimes will get so excited, especially the females, they'll actually squirt out of it. They'll squirt, a foot or 2 out the sides. I've got it in my eyes, in my mouth by accident.
No.
Yeah, it sounds gross, but it doesn't have any flavor. But it's just pure hormone and pheromone.
Oh, man.
And so, yeah, they'll squirt out both sides. And they'll just, because it's part of this olfactory system, if it's cold, like your nose runs a little bit, your eyes get a little runny, sometimes your ears might feel a little itchy because there might be some moisture in them. It's all interconnected. So some people say, oh, it's a sign of a stressed animal. I don't know how you could say that because that would mean that all elephants are stressed all the time. I'm not sure about that one. I don't know why that's in some, I've seen that written down in some books and stuff, some literature about them, and I don't know how they came up with that because I've seen stressed elephants and I don't think there's any difference. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I've never seen any difference because they're almost always, it's like eyes. People go, why are the eyes, they got like sometimes a little bit of moisture in their eyes. Well, I have moisture in my eyes, doesn't mean I'm sad. Your eyes have to clean themselves out and they're always dripping, and if they dried out, then you'd have a big problem.
Yeah, especially in an elephant world that lives with dust and stuff.
There's like a lot of people have said, there's actually even a book when elephants cry or something. again, I don't read enough, unfortunately, but I know of the book. But a lot of people say, oh, elephants cry because they're sad. Well, they can be sad, but they don't cry with tears because they're not like us. They're different. It doesn't mean that they don't have all the feelings we have, but they don't show them the same way. And so the eyes are always tearing. People have said, oh, I saw an elephant's eyes were tearing. Does it mean it's depressed? I'm like, well, they do the same thing in the wild all the time, and if they didn't drip or have some seepage, then that eye would dry out and they'd have dirt stuck in the eye and it would scratch the eye.
Blind infection.
So we all have to have moisture in our eyes, and we all, so it doesn't really mean much. Eyes just run, and so do the temporal lobes. So in a nutshell, that's it. Sorry, that's again the long.
That's quite all right. There was another question in here about the Serval Cats.
Serval Cats.
Okay, because we did an episode on the Serval Cats, and one of our readers, Ashley.
What's this reader's name?
Ashley. She is.
Ashley. Thank you, Ashley.
No, it's C.D. Waney.
C.D. Waney.
Your brother knows her because she's a resident of Port Orford.
Yes.
Yes, she
my brother does
asked.
know her.
Wonderful kitties. I love them. So nice to see. If you were out in the wilderness and came upon one, would it attack or run away?
That's a good question. Look, I'm going to tell you that most of them will not attack. They're small. They're not interested in human beings. They're a very elusive cat in the wild. They're elusive in captivity. I mean, they're not very social, most of them. There's a couple that can be somewhat social, but they're not good pets. I mean, everybody thinks they're going to get one of these as a pet. They try. 99% of people fail. It's just they're not a real friendly cat. They're very intense cat. But in the wild, they are very elusive. They usually keep to themselves. They're small. They're fearful of pretty much everything around them. They don't have any friends, so everything's their enemy. So the chance of them attacking would only be probably if you attack them first, or if you cornered them or try to catch them, then they would defend themselves tooth and nail. No pun intended. But in most cases, they would run for the hills. Now that's a serval. I'm not talking about all cats. I'm talking about servals. So
yeah,
hope that answers that.
Yeah. You answer this question from Michael. He asks, can you do a video or answer the question about your thoughts on Tiger King and Carol Baskin? I've never heard of them, but I'm sure you know them.
Yeah, well, Tiger King. Here's what I'll say about it. I don't like to bag on other people because I don't like it done to me. I don't have all the information on these characters. I do know who these characters are. I've not heard anything good about Miss Baskin, but that's just hearsay. I don't know personally of anything. Joe Exotic, Tiger King himself.
Oh, I've heard of Joe Exotic.
Exotic, yeah. He's
King.
a strange character, but
Okay.
I don't have anything bad to say him because I don't know him.
Okay.
I've heard stories.
That's fair.
I want to believe that they're not true.
Oh.
But I'm sure if you ask around enough, there's enough stories about everybody. So
Yeah.
that's what people do, especially on the good old internet. People like to keyboard warrior and bag on other people.
Yes.
The guy's in a bad situation. What I will say about Tiger King is it's very unfortunate working in Hollywood, working in the film industry. You're offered a lot of amazing deals that we're going to make you a movie star, make you millions. And a lot of people fall for that and think that I believe that most of those characters thought they were going to go on camera because they were going to make lots of money and they were going to look really good, and the production company probably convinced them, we're going to make you look like a hero. And so they went for that. I don't want to defend what they do, but I also don't want to go after them for what they do. They got themselves in a pretty ugly trap. Hollywood likes sad stories, not happy stories, unfortunately. Sad stories sell way better than happy stories. So it's edited to make it way, way, way worse than it is. Is it that bad? I don't know. But I'm sure the editing was not in their favor. And I'll just say to people, watch out when somebody comes to you with something like that and sounds too good to be true. I bet you they're really regretting that they ever did Tiger King, those folks. So hopefully that answers your question.
And it's going to lead us into a couple more questions, still regarding the elephants. One of our viewers asked, how many teeth do elephants have?
How many teeth do elephants have? Well, elephants have two giant molars on the bottom of their mouth on each side, one on each side. There's these big plate molars, crushing molars, and two on top. So it's a mirrored image, top and bottom. They line up perfectly for chewing. There's 4 teeth, or 4 molars in the skull of the elephant, not including what we call the deciduous incisor, which is the tusk. So in the mouth, though, there's 4 molars, 4 major molars. that thing's like on a conveyor belt. They get 6 sets of those in their lifetime. So what happens is the tooth starts wearing down and breaking, the front of it breaks off, and the tooth keeps coming from behind and pushes the other tooth out.
Oh.
And so they get 6 sets of 4 in their mouth. So after that last set is wore out, they're kind of done in the wild, because then they slowly kind of deteriorate and starve to death, because they can't grind the food up enough to get the nutritional value out of the food. They slowly get nutritionally unsound, and that's the end. In captivity, we often can keep elephants alive longer, because what we'll do is start pre-crushing their food, making them kind of like Slurpees, or what do you call the nutritious shakes? What do you call those? Having a brain fart here. We give them to elderly people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I just...
Ensure.
yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. Sorry.
I should know, because I just purchased some.
So, it's like making Ensure for an elephant. We take all the nutrients and all the vitamins and all the things we need, and we grind it, pre-grind it. Thank God I don't mean elephants have to do that with right now, but at some point, you got to consider that their teeth are going to go bad, and then they're not going to have any teeth in their mouth to chew the food they need. So then we can grind up the food and add all the nutritional supplements and everything, like an Ensure shake for elephants.
So elephants live longer and healthier in captivity than
It's
they do in
debatable.
wild?
It's debatable. I mean, if you look at literature and you talk to people that are maybe on the fence or don't like animals in captivity, they'll tell you that they always live longer in the wild, but it's just not really true. I don't want to get in an argument with anybody about it, but I can tell you that they don't have veterinary care. If they get a sore foot or a bad tooth, there's nobody there to save them from that. The elements beat them up. Not the elephants, but the elements.
Yeah.
The elements beat them up. You're walking 20, 30 miles to get dirty water to drink every day. They're full of crocodile-infested and hippo-infested water.
Yeah.
And you're sharing it with a bunch of animals that have tuberculosis and anthrax, and they're coughing in the same water pool. So, look, am I saying that the wild is not as good as captivity? No. I would prefer all animals be in the wild. I think that'd be the best thing ever for if we had that. If we could all live in that fairy tale land,
Yes.
I would love to see all animals exist in the wild and not have to be in captivity. But it's just not true. I mean, when you got a heated and cooled building to live in, and you're not working 35 miles a day. Now, I will say an elephant in the wild is healthier because they're super athletes, because they're walking
Yes.
all darn time. But it's not because they want to.
Yeah.
It's because they'll die if they don't.
And they're also subject to another great predator, the poacher.
The human, yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Unfortunately,
Oh, yeah.
So I hope that answers that question. Again, another drawn out long one, but that's what I got for you.
Kim asked, she saw our video on when the elephants went out and forage free range, and her question was, Hayden, can the elephants eat anything while they are roaming? For example, do they know not to eat poison oak, or does it bother them if they eat it? Do they have teeth? Do they have teeth? Yes, we already answered that. And love all the videos. Thank you for sharing.
That was Kim?
Well, you're welcome, Kim. And I can say, before he talks about the elephants and what harms them, is my goats will eat poison oak. And a goat will prefer the poison oak because of the tastiness, and it doesn't harm them at all. And studies will show that you drink goat milk that has had a diet of poison oak, it'll help your body's immune system against poison oak.
Exactly. Same thing with
Do you
honey.
agree?
Oh yeah, that's the same thing with honey. Like I have honey that's poison oak honey. The beehives are raised in the poison oak, and they pollinate the poison oak. So when you drink the honey or use the honey, you're actually building up an immunity to the poison oak. Yeah,
That's nice.
So yeah, Kim, thank you for the question, Kim. The answer is yes. Elephants are big eaters. They eat a lot, but they are very finicky. They're very selective in what they like and don't like. They'll put just about everything in their mouth, but they'll chew once or twice and they go, "Pah," spit it out like a little kid, and they'll throw it. You'll see them even sweeping off their tongue with their trunk, going, that was bitter. But they have a very interesting, what they like is very interesting. They'll pick just about everything. Oak is a bigger problem than poison oak. So oak leaves, they'll eat the oak all day, the poison oak all day long. It doesn't bother them. They love it, and it seems to be pretty harmless for their system. But oak trees with the
the tannins.
The tannins are really strong. Now, elephants will eat it, and they can eat quite a bit of it, but at a certain point, it can be harmful for them if they eat too much of it.
Oh.
Their stomach, and they don't seem to figure that out. They will eat it anyway. So plants that are in large quantities can be harmful, and they may not realize it and eat it anyway, especially because they're captive. Wild elephants are probably more understanding of that from being in the wild more. But certain things they just know not to eat. I mean, there's certain plants they'll pick up and they'll look, oh, that's not edible, and they'll throw it down. They know. Are they 100%? Probably not. Like I said, I still see them eating oak tree, and like I said, it's not really toxic unless it's in large quantities, and they can handle quite a bit. But everything else they like, they eat even pine. They'll eat a certain amount of pine.
Pine needles are loaded with vitamin C.
Vitamin C, some of the highest vitamin C there is. Yeah. But they love the pine. They'll eat some of the laurel and madrone out here. They'll eat some of the oak. They love the buckbrush, as we talked about in some of our shows.
Yes.
The buckbrush out here, which grows plentiful out here, really nutritious.
That was a surprise to
Nope,
find that.
not poisonous, and they love it. They eat probably, we feed them about 300 pounds a day of that on top of their head. Yeah, so they get about 150 pounds each a day that we cut every morning.
Nice.
They get that fresh. And it's like eating fresh wheatgrass or something. You know, the thing people don't understand about hay is just like when we're living on processed food, every day that it's been cut, it oxidizes, and as it oxidizes, which means it gets oxygen to it, it starts decaying from the minute it is cut from the plant. So hay, sometimes it's stored 6 months to a year in a barn. It's had a lot of time to oxidize. It still has some nutritional value, but it's not healthy. It's not like eating fresh, like doctor says you want to stay out of the doctor's office, eat fresh food that's not been processed, that's not been overcooked, still has all the nutritional value. So if you can fresh cut something every day, you're getting all the nutrition. So we cut every morning about 300 pounds of fresh buckbrush, and they eat that every day, and that's really helpful for their system, and especially their immune system. Builds a really healthy elephant.
I'll have to follow you around sometime with a camera, just harvesting buckbrush.
Harvesting buckbrush, we're going to show
Feeding
about
into
that.
the elephants. Yeah, there's a
Really
show.
well. So yeah, fresh is always way better. Hay is like you eating TV dinners every day.
3 more questions.
3 more questions.
Yes, one on the 2 on the tortoises.
Okay.
One was very interesting. Let's see, this is from Chris, and I was under the impression that you can't put aldabras and sulcatas together.
You shouldn't. Did we do that? Oops.
But you have 8.
Yes.
You have 4 of each.
Yes.
Cohabitating.
Yes. And the answer to that, I guess, is they're not supposed to really. And you talk to anybody that's a tortoise professional, they're like, it's not a good idea. It causes stress. They're not really that compatible. Sulcatas are way more aggressive as far as like they're just pushy. They're way more food motivated. So, you know, in a perfect world, they shouldn't be together. And most people will tell you that's just a big no-no, and I agree with them. The reason mine are together is because the person that originally I got them from had the whole group together, and he said, I would like them to stay together. So I agreed to that. But there are days I'm like, this is a bad idea, I need to separate them. I fight with that all the time. But so far, there's been no real, I've not had any problem with it, but they should not be together.
Yes. But you still have all 8, there's no deaths.
No, everybody's fine and happy, but if you're going to raise tortoises, don't mix them. It's a bad idea. I have a lot of room, indoor and outdoor, and it helps. If you had them in a smaller area, it would probably cause a lot of stress.
Oh yeah, they got plenty of room to get away from each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
This is from Lisa. Lisa says, "Hi, just found your channel." So she subscribed. Thank you for that.
For subscription. Please share with everybody. We need the shares.
Wanted to mention about misinformation about what to feed your tortoises. I go by the old books about what torts eat and haven't any problems.
Yeah.
There is far too much misinformation saying don't give them this or don't give them that.
Yes.
Well, my 4 sulcatas are thriving very well apart from that.
Well,
Apart from
I want to say once again, I've said it before, I'm no tortoise expert. I know a little about a lot, but not a lot about a little. Love the tortoises, they're great. I'm not a big reptile guy. I've had snakes and lizards and all that, but I would never call myself an expert. I'm not an expert. There's people that have so much more knowledge and skill in that world than me by far. I've really very little business even talking about it. But I have successfully kept 8 tortoises happy and healthy for over 15 years, and they're doing very well. What I will say about the food is I found the same thing. It's very hard because you can go online, you can go to Dr. Google and Google search, and you'll have 400 opinions, and everybody's an expert in that field. So you got everybody going at each other's throats online going, I would never do that to my tortoises. You're an idiot for feeding that to the tortoises. Look, I like what works. Not what works for me always works for everybody else. There is a list of food that you can find that are just really not good for your tortoise. It's like humans. We can eat everything. We drink sodas and we eat pizza.
That's
But it's not really good for us, but we get away with it. And the same thing with the reptiles. You can get away with a certain amount of treats and stuff that you know is not healthy for your tortoise. Well, but they like pasta. It's not the good thing to feed.
Pasta's not even good for me.
No, but still people feed pasta sometimes, and they get away with it, and the animal is fine and healthy and happy. But if you are taking this seriously and it's a business, or you're just like such a tortoise person that you want it to be 100%, and you want to be the best there is, then you're going to look at some of the things other people do and go, I'm never doing that because it's just not a good idea. Like broccoli. Broccoli is really bad for tortoises, but I feed a little bit of broccoli. It's all, everything's good in small amounts. It's just like us. You know, you can eat pizza, just don't eat too much pizza. You can drink a little bit of soda and probably get away, but just don't drink soda all the time. Same thing with your animals, your tortoises. You know, you can kill them with love. I've been killing my animals with love forever. It doesn't mean I'm trying to kill them, but you know, nobody's died from it. But you know, you're slowly killing them with love. I'm killing myself with love, self-love, I guess. So the answer is, you know, do your research. Don't listen to everybody that you talk to, because, like I said, I've looked at the excuse my expression, the shit show online of people arguing with each other. And most of those people are true experts. I mean, they know a lot, way more than I do. But I watch how they go at each other. And it's like the people in the dog show world, in AKC or something. You know, you can have three people that raise a certain breed of dog for 35 years. And they'll go after somebody that raised a different breed for 25 years. And they'll go at each other's throats over, you know, just leash handling. Or, you know, how to properly deal with puppies. And everybody has their own way of doing it. Doesn't mean it's the right way. And just because you're doing it a little different doesn't mean it's the wrong way. Do what works best for you. Talk to your veterinarian about it if you can. If you have a veterinarian, sometimes it's a good idea to really make sure you're not really messing things up. But diet is important. Diet is very important. All animals, and especially reptiles, especially a tortoise that's growing a shell. It's almost like your skeletal structure. That thing has to grow in the right direction. I've got some tortoises down there we've seen in the last video that are not healthy because, not because of what I did, but because what was done previous when they were younger. And some of that might have been done 80 years ago. Because, I mean, looking at a tortoise that can live 150, 200 years, the first couple years are the most important out of that egg. And if you're on the wrong track in the first 2 years, that tortoise has a lifetime of, being not perfect or having health issues from what was done. I can't change that now. And that's the thing about a tortoise. Once their shell or their body structure, their frame or skeletal system starts getting disrupted by the wrong nutrition, it's almost impossible to reverse. So that's important.
My dad instructed me I remember this, when I was 7 years old, he taught me what an expert is, the definition of an expert. He said it's a compound Greek word, a combination of two different words. X meaning formerly or unknown, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So that his definition of an expert was an unknown drip under pressure.
I love it. Your dad and I would have got along really well. But you know, it's like a house. You know, if your foundation, you started building your house with a bad foundation or uneven or not even level foundation, you got a house that's cattywampus forever. You're not fixing that afterwards. So it's kind of the same thing with a lot of these reptiles. Got to start out the right way, on the right foot. But again, treat your animals right. A little love is okay. Try not to kill them with love. And just do the best you can and do research.
Last question. Can people, this is from Dolly, can people visit or tour your ranch in Southern Oregon?
Well, I'd like to say yes to that. We're working on that still. You know, it's been complicated, and so we're trying to make sure we do everything on the up and up. There's lots of things that have to happen for that to happen. We have had some numbers and emails where people could look that up. We're just trying to mainly feel around to see how many people are interested in such a thing. It's good to know that we have a few, not as many as I'd like, but we have a few. But also I have to make sure that we do it legally and legit. So the answer is we'll get back to you on that. I'm still trying to get that done.
So you have to be licensed with the USDA to be able to even have these animals.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's certain levels of licenses that they got: A class, B class, C class, G class, H class.
Some of it's for exhibition, some of it's for laboratory work. There's
some of it's just for transporting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, and then some of it's for showing, like what you have. And so,
exhibition, they call it.
Yeah, exhibition.
Exhibiting. Yeah, and I've been licensed, I want to say since I think I got my first license in 92 or 93, I believe. I could be wrong on that. I'm trying to be pre-93.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be federally licensed, what's called a USDA, Department of Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and there's a sector of USDA called APHIS, Animal Plant Health Inspection Service.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come and they inspect us unannounced a couple times a year usually.
And you just got inspected
I
not too
just
long
got
ago.
inspected. They want to inspect me again because there's an inspection for re-inspection. They have to inspect it, and then they come right back out and do your annual or your biannual inspection. Because I have elephants, I'm on a biannual usually.
Okay.
So yeah, we get inspected frequently, and there's a lot of regulations, a big thick book that we have to follow,
Mhm.
and we have to cross all of our T's and dot our I's. And I've been very, I'm pretty anal retentive about care, so I've been very fortunate and stayed out of their way and made them happy every year for all these years. I want to try to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Certain states, certain counties also require lots of permits.
Mhm.
I had to have permits to import animals into the state of Oregon.
Mhm.
I had to, in California, there's a lot more. In California, we had state, county, in individual city permits if you went into any other areas, especially for filming. I had to have an individual permit. And every day, you know, like for instance, I would go into Van Nuys or Burbank to film, and all of a sudden in the dark of night, they pass a new bill or a new rule. They don't let you know. So you show up and they're like, you're in violation. What do you mean we're in violation? Well, we passed a bill last night. So now you gotta do this, this, and this. And so there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of open hands for permit fees,
Mhm.
taxation.
Mhm.
And that's basically what it is. They wanna regulate tax, and they wanna also know who's coming and going and who's operating and keeping animals in
Right.
certain areas.
And they're also the agency entrusted with making sure everybody's taking care of these animals too.
There's a lot of them. That's the problem,
Yeah.
though. I mean, like you have animal control that thinks they can supersede the state. Fish and wildlife thinks they can supersede. So there's, you know, there's the
Mhm.
local locality, and all the way up to the federal.
I
And so they step on each other's toes all the time, and nobody knows. They don't communicate with each other. So that makes it difficult because you can get visited by the feds.
Mhm.
And they can go, everything looks amazing, and then an hour later get visited by the state, and he goes, it looks pretty good, and then you get visited by the county, and he goes, I don't like this. Well, okay, is that in the regulations? No. Okay, but the state and feds were just here and they said it was fine. Oh, okay.
I just had a conversation with a gentleman with Oregon Fish and Wildlife, and he knows who you are. And he's very fond of the idea of you being in the area because you actually helped him out with something because of your licensing that nobody else had. You were able to handle a red slider.
Red-eared slider.
What is that?
A red-eared slider's a turtle.
Oh!
But they're unfortunately, that turtle is considered, what do you call it? Well, it's not indigenous to the area. It's not native to the
So
area.
it could be an
And it's
invasive
invasive,
species.
thank you. It's an invasive species. I don't know if I have a brain. I love having an old brain. Yeah, they're an invasive species, so they're
Mhm.
highly controlled.
Okay.
They're not really allowed.
Understandable.
They're definitely not allowed as pets. And what happens, unfortunately, with a lot of these types of animals is somebody gets their kid a red-eared slider, and then when the kid grows up, goes off to college or something, or the parent's tired because the kid's not taking good care of the turtle or whatever it is, they want to chuck it in the water in a pond or a river or a lake. Now that thing is out there, and it starts causing problems for other species. Becomes competitive to other
taken.
species, so the native species start suffering because we're introducing stuff that doesn't belong.
No,
It's kind of like Asian
yeah.
carps and all that. They can get into a waterway and destroy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we have like that, what is it, what are the mussels, we have that mussel that grows on boats, and then people launch their boats into the lakes out here.
Oh, you have
it's
to
a-
pressure wash your
Yeah,
boats.
and they have to get that
Yeah.
inspected in Oregon too,
Mhm.
because what happens, you're gonna reintroduce some species.
An invasive species
It's
coming.
not striped mussel. I can't remember what that is either. Well, my brain. But anyway, they want to inspect to make sure you're not reintroducing these species into the waterways because it's almost impossible to get rid of it once it happens.
Oh, dear.
So that's the story on the red-eared slider. And so
Oh,
I was
okay.
helping. This was a rescue animal that was owned illegally, and there was a person that was able to, that has the licensing and is able to rescue wildlife
Mhm.
in the state of Oregon. They have all the proper permits to do so, and I was just basically just helping out. But yeah, they don't want to hand that off to just anybody, so I was able to
Right.
go and pick it up and,
That's cool.
and get it to that nonprofit group and let them rescue it and give it a good life.
Hayden, good interview. Lots of information on elephants,
trying.
tortoises,
We're
cats, licensing. We hope we answered a lot of your questions.
Please roll them out. The questions are great. We love the
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, and stay tuned to more shows. We're working on some more. So I'm Jerry.
I'm Hayden.
And this is Southern Oregon Safaris.
We're the Buffalo Realm. And please keep like, share, subscribe. We need all that, please. We need this channel to grow. It'll really help us out. And we want to get the word out. So please help us out with that.
We'll see you guys in our next episode. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.